Welcome to RealCast, the weekly roundup of the real asset markets. My name's Richard Betts, and I'm joined by Paul Strome, Nicole Dines, and Dan Ennis. Let's start with you, Paul. What's your pick of the stories of the week?
Again, it's the rise of logistics, and a report from Savills. An additional 8.6 million square metres of warehouse space is required by the parcels sector, and that's to keep up with the growing e-commerce demand. Apparently, 12.3 billion parcels were delivered in Europe during 2019. There's growth of about 9% per year in the parcels business, and the next 5 years in Europe will require a significant development pipeline, they've said. We often hear about the returns component of online retail being a large proportion of the sales process now, but Savills puts it at 20% of parcels, which in itself implies an additional requirement for 1.7 million square metres. Savills EMEA Investment Advisory Director Marcus Dominkovic said it'll be interesting to see whether, when bricks and mortar stores reopen after the lockdown, whether retailers repurpose them as returns hubs, which could change the role of those stores. Obviously, it wasn't a coincidence, but in the week that USA's President Biden hosted a virtual climate summit online with 40 world leaders, retailer Amazon demonstrated just how ubiquitous it has become. The firm announced its investment in 9 new utility-scale wind and solar energy projects in Canada, the US, Spain, Sweden, and the UK. These investments make it the largest corporate buyer of renewable energy in Europe and in the world. It has said its goal is to be using 100% renewable energy by 2025. The new investments bring the total to 206 around the world, with more than 2.5 gigawatts of capacity in Europe, which is enough to power over 2 million homes a year. And it's got 8.5 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity globally. Amazon's founder and CEO, Jeff Bezos, said that many parts of the business are already operating on renewable energy, and the 2025 date will be 5 years ahead of the original target of 2030. Amazon co-founded the Climate Pledge in 2019, which is a commitment to reach the Paris Agreement targets 10 years early and to be net zero by 2040.
It's been really interesting, I think, those trends, both in terms of the build of renewable energy and also just picking up on that logistics side as well. I noticed that Pierre-David Bailac had joined Generali as head of logistics, and that was a newly created role. And also Newsec continued to strengthen its position in the sector with the hire of Anita Samaza as head of logistics and industrial. So a lot of movement there also in that sector. Nicole, what have you been watching?
Well, as Paul mentioned, this week was very much focused on the environment, with President Biden hosting this summit and announcing that the US will reduce its greenhouse emissions by 50% by 2030. So a definite U-turn compared to the Trump era. And of course, other countries follow suit. Japan and Canada announced new, more stringent targets. And the UK was the first one in the week before the summit, announcing that it will cut its emissions by 78% by 2035, 15 years earlier than planned, obviously looking ahead to COP26 in November, which is going to be the crucial UN meeting that the UK is hosting. But the emphasis was very much, as Boris Johnson, with his inimitable turn of phrase, said, it's not politically correct bunny hugging. It's very much about business, as we've seen with Amazon and many other companies. And the focus has been very much on the built environment. Everyone has remembered at the summit that 40% of emissions come from the built environment, from buildings, and the problem of embedded carbon. So whatever you do from now on, you still have a existing problem to deal with. So that's going to very much put the spotlight on the real estate sector. And we've seen it in many different sectors. For example, this week, Chelsea Barracks, the Qatari luxury real estate development in central London, was the first one in Europe to get platinum certification. And it's only one of 16 in the whole world. That's an interesting development in the sort of high-end residential sector. So it shows the way. And we've seen another massive urban regeneration in Italy, Milano Sesto, which was a very much run-down industrial area, used to be steelworks in Milan, that is being completely regenerated by Heinz, the big US group. And they've fired the starting gun on what is the biggest regeneration project in Italy and one of the biggest in Europe, with the focus again very much on green spaces, the environment, and so on. So that's definitely been the theme of the week. Another sort of positive theme for real estate has been what Marriott Hotels call the renaissance of travel. Very much a belief that the sector, which has been so badly hit by the pandemic, is going to come back with a vengeance. And Marriott is opening new hotels in most European cities. And Legal & General in the UK made its first investment into a hotel, a new concept, Yotel, which is budget luxury hotel in central London. And again, showing that they believe that budget hotels and leisure hotels are very much going to do well in the future.
Yeah, it was interesting to see, having not been in the headlines for a little while, a couple of stories there, particularly around the hospitality and leisure side. I also noticed that the Student Hotel continued their sort of focus on Italy and announced that they were investing 90 million to buy the historic former customs building in Rome. That'll be their fifth asset in Italy. Dan, what have you been following?
This week, I've been following some of the UK's levelling up stories. They're developing sort of outside of London and South East, up north into the Midlands and the north of England. There's been a boost for the West Midlands as part of Innovate Finance's fintech national network. After Goldman Sachs, they've revealed that they're planning to establish a major new tech function in Birmingham, creating several hundred jobs. This national network, it brings together regional clusters up and down the country to encourage collaboration and sort of level up that financial technology drive across the country. Goldman Sachs, they're not the only player to create a base within Birmingham, of course. I mean, just last month, the Department of Transport announced a new northern hub in the city as well. So Birmingham's attracting more and more big business. Moving further up the country to Leeds, where it's been announced that parts of the Bank of England are going to move to Leeds as the central bank sort of takes advantage of remote working. And the governor, Andrew Bailey, he announced that the institution is going to create a new northern hub and significantly increase its staff presence across the UK. So, it's clear from a lot of this week's news that the government's levelling up initiative is gaining a lot of momentum, and that substantial regional differences in economic performance are actually finally being addressed. In other news, in the residential markets, we saw Moorfield, the Moorfield Group. They've partnered with PropTech company Brick Lane to build a £600 million PRS portfolio over the next 2 years. They plan to buy around 2,000 1 to 4 bedroom houses and flats over the next 2 years, with an initial focus on London, Bristol and the South East. But they're going to use Brick Lane's Compass platform, which is, I think, the key point of difference here. That's going to identify rental properties that are expected to outperform. And they've got a focus of sort of 98% of the UK rental market owned by 2.5 million buy-to-let landlords. So the business, they're saying that they're looking to professionalise the renters' experience. In other news, people are also really talking about Hammerson striking that deal that confirms their exit from the UK retail park sector. They've offloaded all of their retail parks to Canadian investment firm Brookfield, and that was in a £330 million deal, which is, of course, 8% less than the book value of the portfolio of those 7 assets at the end of last year, certainly. Together with its other recent sales, it now takes Hammerson's gross proceeds from these disposals to £403 million to be exact so far this year, and that's at an average 6% discount to their 2020 valuation. So a balancing up there. Across to the continent, Macquarie Asset Management, the Australian investment bank, they've acquired the final asset in a €190 million logistics real estate portfolio in Poland on behalf of BVK. And that's a 12 logistic facility and 3 logistic park portfolio in Warsaw, Krakow and Tri-City in northern Poland. They've now invested €6.7 billion in logistics globally on behalf of investors over the last 10 years. And lastly, a bit of a shift over to the retail sector. Have you ever thought, Richard, of having your hair cut at Amazon? Well, Amazon have announced a move into the world of hairdressing with the opening of a high-tech hair salon in London. And the salon's being billed as an experiential venue to show off new products and technology, including augmented reality that will show you what you might look like with different kinds of haircuts. Anyway, there's no plans to expand any others just yet, but certainly one to keep an eye on.
Well, I'll be certainly looking forward to experience that part of the Amazon portfolio. Thanks very much, Dan. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next week for our regular roundup of the week in real assets. Thank you.